I am broadcasting on all AM frequencies. I will be at the South Street Seaport every day at midday, when the sun is highest in the sky. If you are out there, if anyone is out there, I can provide food, I can provide shelter, I can provide security. If there's anybody out there, anybody, please, you are not alone.
Hey, what's up, everybody? We are 4 days out from Endgame 2020, and today I am going to share with you four men that I listen to. I pretty much think that all four of these men had, in some point in their life, had alien intervention. Okay, so Alex Collier, definitely, that's like his main thing. He says that he actually went and lived with aliens, and the stuff that he says is actually pretty good. So yeah, that's Alex Collier has some good stuff. Jordan Maxwell does not claim that he had any alien intervention, but after what happened to me and listening to Alex Collier and listening to David Icke, I'm pretty damn sure that Jordan Maxwell also had alien intervention happen, but he probably will not speak about it because it's a type of thing that people just think you're crazy anyhow. First, let me explain to you about Jordan Maxwell a little bit. Jordan Maxwell is the man who has broken down the English language to the point of where you can actually see all these connections that you have never seen before. When you listen to him talk about the English language and him explain the language to you, it was completely eye-opening for me. I was just like, how the hell how did I not see this? And it's just like, it's freaking brilliant. And it's just like, wow, it's not, the language itself is by design. So yeah, listen to George Maxwell. He's got some really good stuff. David Icke also says some things that are really, really eye-opening. Like, you're just like, how did I not see this? He predicted what is happening right now. In fact, a lot of people laughed at David Icke years ago. For years, he was laughed at. In fact, he worked in the media over in Britain. He had alien intervention, but he won't say that he did. He just says that he had this enlightening moment. In fact, that whole thing about being awake, I am pretty damn sure became popular from the underground movement from David Icke. That whole thing of awakening, because he was using that term years ago when nobody, that just got popular right before 2012. Because everybody said, oh, there's going to be this great awakening in 2012. I don't know if you guys remember that, but David Icke actually made that popular a long time ago. When people are laughing at him, calling him a nutter, that's what he would say, they call him a nutter. And he was literally, they would get him on stage and they would make fun of him. In old videos, predicted everything that's happening this year. And so now he is super famous. There's so many people that are jumped on the David Icke bandwagon. It's like people who were preppers for years, and people would laugh at you and say, oh, why are you prepping? Why do you have all this stuff? And they would laugh. But now all of a sudden, everybody's a freaking prepper, right? It's the same thing, and he even talks about that whole herd sheep mentality. But yeah, so David Icke has got some really good stuff. And when you hear somebody who's had when they've had that type of intervention, it's weird. You can tell by the way they talk and the things that they're saying. The other one is Alex Collier. And I said something about him before, and I'm going to play some clips from him as well. He actually says that he had not just alien intervention, but they have been with him his whole life, and they've taken him, into space and all this stuff. And he will explain to you things about alien life forms and aliens in such a great detail. And here's one of the reasons why I give him the benefit of the doubt that he may very well be telling the truth. Not just because I actually had evidence left behind from an alien in my school and my mind was unlocked, but here's the main reason why. When he does interviews, somebody will ask him something and he'll say, I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. I'm sorry, I can't give you the answer to that. When somebody is making up shit, when they're lying, they will lie so much that they will lie about minute things to build their lie, okay? So they'll continue to keep lying, and they'll always have an answer. When somebody always has an answer on a great lie, and they'll build up all these other little answers, then you know pretty much, okay, they're lying, because there's no holes anywhere, and they're just making shit up as they're going. And because it's too risky to be exposed about their lie, they'll continue to keep lying about even small, stupid things. And Alex says quite a few times in interviews that there's, he doesn't know this or he doesn't know that, and he'll tell you what he does know. And so because there's no way possible that he could know everything. And that makes sense. That's one of the main reasons why I put more stock into listening to what Alex has to say. The other one is completely different from the first three, from Alex Collier, Jordan Maxwell, and David Icke. And the fourth one is the only scientist that I actually really respect. And before people get on this whole, you cannot believe scientists and stuff, because there are, and I'm going to expose some scientists, especially Neil deGrasse Tyson, and Michio Kaku. People will sit there and say you can't trust scientists when they're using fucking internet and they're using electronic devices. Don't tell me you can't trust any scientists, yet you're using science to broadcast your shit, and you've done nothing for humanity. And right now, when you're sitting in the comfort of your home, and you're using electronic devices to keep you warm, and you're using all these things that were, if you do the research and you go all the way back, that all come from science and scientists, and then you want to say you can't trust scientists, then I cannot take anything that you say at all serious. The only scientist that I really truly respect, I'm going to say that I am pretty sure that he also has had alien intervention. Not just, well, there is another scientist. I'm sorry, there's another one, but I don't really have any video stuff of listening to things that he said. And I haven't read, I don't know if he read any books, but Nikola Tesla was also an amazing scientist also. If you have not listened to The Cosmos, I used to listen to that every freaking night before I go to sleep. The stuff that he talks about is really, really good. And you can understand science a lot better. And don't say science is bullshit, yet you're on the internet. Don't say that. Because, you're just contradicting your own self. Doesn't make any sense. Go be Amish. But anyhow, probably the best way for me to explain what happened in my karate school that night is by letting you listen to what Carl Sagan explaining the people of flat. And with that, yes, guys, that's it for today. I'm going to be posting videos on them. It'll actually be on this video here. I'll have different segments from each one of those men that are very good stuff to listen to help open your minds. And the other thing is with David Icke, he has a different perspective of reptilians than what I do. His perspective is that they're all bad, and I'm going to be making a case that they're not all bad, and that's probably dangerous to do. I don't think all the Anunnaki are bad either, but I'm definitely going to be coming from a different point of view than what he will be, than what you're going to hear with him. And that was the one thing that everybody laughed at him about, because he said that there are reptilians running the world. And because he said that, people like in Britain, they totally tried to humiliate this man, and he would not bend. He took all the humiliation. He took all the ridicule. He took all the shit that people were throwing at him, and he just kept pushing out his message. And his message was, for the most part, was all positive for humanity. It was just because he said, hey, there's reptilians who are running, and then they used that one thing to run off of to try to destroy him. And then now in 2020, everybody's running towards him because they're like, wait, I heard this guy predicted all this stuff was going to happen. And he was right. He even pretty much predicted 9/11.
It was kind of interesting, in the early 1990s when the top of my head blew off, and I kind of was staggering around trying to make sense of what was happening to me, because suddenly I was seeing the world in a very different way, and I was seeing myself in a very different way. Some people call it a spiritual awakening. Notice spiritual awakening, not religious awakening. I'm going to have some t-shirts done, God save us from religion. It's kind of funny, you talk about spirituality, people think you're talking about religion. Often it's the opposite. Not always, but often. And religion for me is, in many cases, the opposite of spirituality. In my definition of religion, religion is the greatest form of mind control yet invented, and at its most extreme, psychological fascism, the manipulation of fear and guilt to control. Spirituality is the opposite of that. It is setting the spirit free, celebrating our uniqueness, because we're all aspects of the same whole, but we're all unique aspects of the same whole. And crucially, respecting everyone else's right to express their uniqueness, free from imposition of someone else's belief system, someone else's version of right and wrong, moral and immoral. All this is crucial to how a few control the world. Because we have become, yes, in many cases, terrorized into denying what we are unique. And once we do that, we become a herd mentality. And it is the herd mentality that is the vehicle for the manipulation of the world by a very few people. I'll give you an example of what I mean. Symbolic example. I was down south in England, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago now, and across this great area of, it was one of these Iron Age hill fort type things, but across it was this vast herd of sheep, hundreds of them. Never seen so many sheep in one place. And it's a nice day, you know, and I'm enjoying the day. And then the farmer arrives in his pickup truck, parks it, gets out of the truck, and I swear to you, I don't think he even moved an eyelid. Stood there against a stick. 1 or 2 or 3 of the sheep immediately react to, it must have been his eyelids, I guess, I don't know, because they're going in the desired direction. Within minutes, it's like Exodus. Hundreds of them are following the one in front, you know. I haven't got mine of my own, we did this yesterday, so we do it tomorrow, I guess we'll do it today, and all that stuff. And the few stragglers, and there were remarkably few, who didn't immediately conform to what you might call that bar mentality, they were given the extra dose of fear with the sheepdog. Row, 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 row. All right, all right, all right, I'll go quietly. This combination of the bar and the fear rounded up this vast herd of sheep in a ridiculously short time. And I stood there and I thought, because I do from time to time, I'm looking at the human race here. This is how it's done. This is how a few can actually control the mass, because you can't do it with tanks in the streets and soldiers at the door. There's too many people. It's like trying to physically herd sheep together. You can't do it. You'd need a man, maybe more than one, for every sheep to do it physically. You have to do it through the mind, either through fear or through conditioning people to think the way you want them to think. So these hundreds of sheep were rounded up by one fella flicking his eyelids every now and again, and a sheepdog dispensing fear. And that's how it's done in human terms also. It's amazing the extent to which we have given our power away.
The global balance of terror, pioneered by the United States and the Soviet Union, holds hostage all the citizens of the earth. Each side persistently probes the limits of the other's tolerance, like the Cuban Missile Crisis, the testing of anti-satellite weapons, the Vietnam and Afghanistan wars. The hostile military establishments are locked in some ghastly mutual embrace. Each needs the other. But the balance of terror is a delicate balance with very little margin for miscalculation. And the world impoverishes itself by spending $1 trillion a year on preparations for war, and by employing perhaps half the scientists and high technologists on the planet in military endeavors. how would we explain all this to a dispassionate extraterrestrial observer? What account would we give of our stewardship of the planet Earth? We have heard the rationales offered by the superpowers. We know who speaks for the nations, but who speaks for the human species? Who speaks for Earth? From an extraterrestrial perspective, our global civilization is clearly on the edge of failure in the most important task it faces, preserving the lives and well-being of its citizens and the future habitability of the planet. But if we're willing to live with the growing likelihood of nuclear war, shouldn't we also be willing to explore vigorously every possible means to prevent nuclear war? Shouldn't we consider in every nation major changes in the traditional ways of doing things, a fundamental restructuring of economic, political, social, and religious institutions? We've reached a point where there can be no more special interests or special cases. Nuclear arms threaten every person on the Earth. Fundamental changes in society are sometimes labeled impractical or contrary to human nature, as if nuclear war were practical, or as if there were only one human nature. But fundamental changes can clearly be made. We're surrounded by them. In the last 2 centuries, abject slavery, which was with us for thousands of years, has almost entirely been eliminated in a stirring worldwide revolution. Women, systematically mistreated for millennia, are gradually gaining the political and economic power traditionally denied to them. And some wars of aggression have recently been stopped or curtailed because of a revulsion felt by the people in the aggressor nations. The old appeals to racial, sexual, and religious chauvinism and to rabid nationalist fervor are beginning not to work. A new consciousness is developing which sees the Earth as a single organism and recognizes that an organism at war with itself is doomed. We are one planet.
The reason they're concerned, based on past galactic history, everywhere, is that when technology far surpasses spirituality, that particular race, in most cases, destroys itself. This, of course, would grieve them. And throughout our galaxy, there are the remnants of civilizations that have reached a high level of technology that no longer exist. The reason this is a concern is because the currency of the galaxy is not money. It's consciousness and it's DNA. It is life forms. It is the expression of life. It is the expression of life becoming something else and evolving. It is the expression of a life form reaching consciousness, becoming aware of itself, and evolving to another dimension. Again, the reason for saying this, and I will share with you in the Andromedan's own words, their concerns for humanity, is because if we stop and make the mistake of thinking someone is going to come and fix our problems, we may have a rude awakening. And then all that time when we could have been working, we did nothing. Okay? The Andromedans use color, light, and holographic tools for healing. Now, it's not that they catch a disease, but occasionally some of their scientists that are out in the world, or they're exploring a comet or exploring a quasar, accidents happen, all right? And in that case, they would have to fix their physicality. One of the things that they do is they have this camera that is the most remarkable thing I've ever seen. This camera takes a picture of you. They remove the film. The film has your picture from the moment you were conceived to the present moment that they take your picture. It has your entire life right there. Now let's say that you are suffering from a cancer. What they'll do is they would take a portion of that slide, that picture of you, where your body was the strongest. They will take that out. They will remove the rest of the film. They will take that picture, that piece of this picture of you where your body is the strongest, the most vibrant. Doesn't matter the age. And they will put it back into the camera and project that holographic image over your body. And within moments, you're healed. It's just that quick. Okay? So there is technology that they could offer. And they're just one of many races that want to help. Okay? But again, we have free will. We have free will. There has to be a conscious effort to invite this kind of assistance. At the same time, however, and this is one of their biggest concerns, is that they want us also to take some self-responsibility. Now, it doesn't take everyone on the planet to do that. It takes a percentage. Okay? That percentage is somewhere between 7 and 12%, so I'm told, before it creates what is called the 100th monkey syndrome, where it just makes a conscious shift. And people don't even have to be on board. They will suddenly just experience a consciousness shift. And I'm told we're getting very, very close to that percentage where it'll be a domino effect. And suddenly people will just begin to make changes. They may not even know why, and it doesn't even matter at this point, as long as they make some changes and shifts and let go of fear and embrace total mutual respect and love and self-responsibility. That's all that matters. They're more or less waiting for that because they don't want to come down here and babysit us. The times that that's happened in the past in our galaxy, it's not worked. They have discovered that in intervening without a mutual relationship, a mutual agreement, without mutual responsibility, that intervention disempowers the race on the planet. And nobody wants to make that mistake again.
That's of entities that are called the Watchers. Then there's also something called the Sons of God. And many people have mistaken sons of God in the Bible for angels. Angels are spirit entities. Sons of God, according to the old Jewish tradition and Christian and the Islamic world, recognizes that sons of God is different than angels. Sons of God are entities, not from here, but who look like us. They look like humans, but they're not fully human. They merely look like us. And I am of the opinion that the reason why that is because they made us in their image and likeness. And so we say they look like us. No, in fact, we look like them. They made us in their image and likeness. And when you read in the Bible in the beginning, which I will be showing you, when it says God created man and God created man. And point of fact, the Bible does not say God created man. It's not saying that at all. It's saying that God has recreated man. You'll see all of this in the scriptures, but the point I want to make here for this whole presentation is that we are the product of a higher civilization who is watching us, and they are the ones that we have talked about for thousands of years as the gods. The Greeks had their gods, the Babylonians had their gods, all the ancient cultures talked about they who have come down from above, the gods. They were supernatural, but they looked like men. They were messing around with women, but they were not from here. They were supernatural. I think there's something to that. I think that's very true. And I think that they're still messing around with us today. So I want to make the difference. I want the difference to be made in your mind between angels and sons of God. Angels are spirits, sons of God look like us. They are physical beings.
Well, it's great to be back at Wembley. Isn't it amazing to say back at Wembley when you were a nutter 25 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago? And there'll be some media people here who come with the impression that I still am. But we're going to talk about that which is beyond the norm, which, of course, will challenge much of the mainstream media, if not all of it. And we're going to talk about awakening. We have been systematically put into a state of unconsciousness so that we cannot see what we are part of and what we are experiencing, though that is changing and changing fast. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. All the time, the subconscious, which we're not aware of, is dictating the behavior and responses of the conscious. And if we don't understand the unconscious, then the conscious will just be a pawn in a game. It doesn't understand. Ignorance. The most violent element of society is ignorance. Ignorance is the key to everything, because everything comes from ignorance. What we will challenge, what we will accept, what we will respond to, what we will ignore, all comes from ignorance. What we will support and what we won't. And the idea from cradle to grave is to keep us in that state of ignorance. State schooling is stage one. Actually, it's stage two. Parents putting their programming onto their children before school is stage one if their parents are in that state of mind. But this is the first major program. State schooling decoded. It seems so complex, but all it means is that we're here to program your perceptions throughout your formative years so the state controls your mind for the rest of your life. End of story. And we call it education and learning about the world. No, it's learning about the world that in power wishes us to believe in. And here we go from school and we go into this free society. I'm free, I can do what I like. Go to work, get married, have children, act normal, walk on the pavement, watch TV, obey the law, save for your old age, then repeat after me, I am free. And we keep having to say we're free, and in America they keep having to tell the people they're free every 5 minutes because they might otherwise suss that they're not. Slavery was never abolished. It was only extended to include everyone. And yet people go so out of their way to convince themselves they're not in a state of slavery. This is slavery. But this could be an office where you have to be every morning at 9 o'clock. Otherwise you don't earn the money to survive another month. I mean, spot the bloody difference. Apart from the fact the chickens can't go home at night and watch Simon Bloody Cow, I don't see a lot. Slavery, it works better when you don't tell them. Because then you get no response to the fact that they're slaves because they don't think they are. First stage of disconnecting from slavery, realize you're in a state of slavery. Then you know what to disconnect from. This is great, George Carlin. Oh, you hate your job? Why do you say so? There's a support group for that. It's called Everybody, and they meet at the bar. And that's not true of everybody, but the vast majority of people every morning around the world get up out of bed, if they have one, and go to do something they'd really rather not do, but they got to pay the rent, so they got to do it. They're pissing on us and we say it's raining. No, we're free. We're free. I've got to vote every 4 years to vote for different masks on the same face. It's ever so free. Leonardo da Vinci. There are 3 classes of people: those who see when they are shown, those who do not see. And this system we call life is designed, again from cradle to grave, to make sure as many people do not see. And that's what I call the perception deception.
Into that. What is faith? It is belief in the absence of evidence. Now, I don't propose to tell anybody what to believe, but for me, believing when there's no compelling evidence is a mistake. The idea is to withhold belief until there is compelling evidence. And if the universe does not comply with our predispositions, okay, then we have the wrenching obligation to accommodate to the way the universe really is.
So you step forward to say, I deny all religion because I can't see it proved scientifically?
No. You see,
the value of religious experience and the value of reaching for higher experiences.
Let me say, religion deals with history, with poetry, with great literature, with ethics, with morals, including the morality of treating compassionately the least fortunate among us. All of these are things that I endorse wholeheartedly. Where religion gets into trouble is in those cases that it pretends to know something about science. The science in the Bible, for example, was acquired by the Jews from the Babylonians during the Babylonian captivity of 600 BC. That was the best science on the planet then. But we've learned something since then. Roman Catholicism, Reformed Judaism, most of the mainstream Protestant denominations have no difficulty with the idea that humans have evolved from other creatures, that the Earth is 4.6 billion years old, with the Big Bang. They don't have any trouble with that. The trouble comes with people who are biblical literalists, who believe that the Bible is dictated by the creator of the universe to an unerring stenographer.
And so therefore they...
And has no metaphor or allegory.
And from there they make their political and economic choices, and social choices.
And scientific.
And scientific choices. And scientific. And that's part of your problem with that idea.
Exactly.
It is that because for the wrong reasons we make the wrong choices about science.
That's right. So who is more humble? The scientist who looks at the universe with an open mind and accepts whatever the universe has to teach us, or somebody who says everything in this book must be considered the literal truth, and never mind the fallibility of all the human beings involved in the writing of this book?
Well, yeah, walk out at night, look into the sky. What are you looking at? Heaven. So if God is in heaven, yeah, he's out there in the stars. You'll say, yeah, I'll bet he's out there in the stars. No, he was out there in the stars. They are here. They live. They're here. And I am totally convinced that that is the case. We are being ruled by extraterrestrial intelligence. Whoever these people are who are running the earth are highly advanced in science, and they're bringing us along little by little. They are mutating the species. They're mutating us. We used to be back in the 20s, just regular people, poor people working. Now we're getting sophisticated with computers and Hollywood, and we're moving now into the concept of procreating with the brain and the computer, going to the moon. It's a whole different kind of creature is being developed right now. By who? Somebody out there is messing with us. And so I'm saying what you need to do is take back your own humanity and no longer buy into any religious system, no cultural systems, none of this. Start thinking for yourself. Educate your mind. Where do things come from? Where do words come from? Where do these ideas and concepts come from? I'm not buying into anybody's religion, their governments, their systems of education, none of it. I don't buy any of it. For a long time I've been questioning where do we get our knowledge about anything? Somebody's manipulating us. This is why we have something called politically correct. You've got to understand, you've got to go to school and learn what you're supposed to so you can get a job and work and fit in with the society. I don't want to fit in with society. There's nothing about society I want to fit in with, period. I just want to have people start thinking for themselves and asking questions. When I was 9 years old, I was confirmed as a Catholic confirmation. And the nuns told us, she said, tomorrow at Sunday at church will be a confirmation ceremony, and the bishop is going to be here. And it's going to be a very important time for you children. And so after the confirmation service is over tomorrow night in church, the bishop might possibly ask you if you have any questions, because now that you're Catholic, the bishop may ask you if you have any questions. Now, if that happens, you do not ask any questions ever. You sit down and shut up. You don't have any questions. And so that's what I needed. So that night, after the confirmation was over, when the confirmation was over, the bishop did say, if you children have any questions, I'll try and answer them. So I stood up to make sure they damn well know who I am. I stood up and I said, yes, I have a question. And I'm 9 years old. And I said, my father works with torches like a welder. And I said, could I take a torch and turn up the fire on the torch and burn an angel? If there was an angel here, could I burn him and hurt him? And he says, what do you mean burn an angel? I said, if I had a torch, could I burn an angel? Would it hurt him? And he said, no, you couldn't hurt an angel. I said, why not? He said, well, fire is a physical thing. It takes wood or plastic or paper or something to burn. You can't burn an angel. And I said, why not? And he said, because angels are spirits. You can't burn a spirit. And I said, well, why am I concerned about going to hell where my spirit will burn forever and you can't burn a spirit? So the priest said, yes, sit down, shut up. In front of everybody.
Because, they've been studying us for years. They're fifth density, but they're also time travelers. They can go back and forth in time. So they know. They know everything about us. The good, the bad, and the ugly. They know it all. So on one particular occasion, I was asked to talk to them about money. And that discussion regarding money, I'm going to change the slide here. I spent some time putting together a paper on money, the history of money on our planet as far back as I could go, and why we use it today and why it has a measure of value, etc. Now, this went over a period of 4 to 5 contacts. When it was over, Mornay was very gracious. He said, thank you very much. I learned a lot. Of course, they already knew. But Visayas, and I totally feel like I was set up for this, Visayas just looked at me, and he said, I don't understand. And I'm like, well, what don't you understand? He said, why, now he's saying this telepathically because he didn't learn to speak ever, why do you have to pay to live on a planet you were born on? Now, that is something our society, our civilization, it's probably a question we would never ask ourselves. Because we're so used to being ingrained to use money and to allow money to control us. Okay? So that was a question. I bring that up to you only because that question has haunted me ever since that moment till today, and I don't want to be alone with that haunting. So now I've got you there with me, okay? So I'm sharing that with you. If any of you have an answer to that question, why do we have to pay to live on a planet we were born on, please let me know, okay? And I will push it forward. I don't have a genuine, because none of the other space ET civilizations use money. They don't use it at all, okay? they just don't use it. In fact, from that moment on, Visayas would only refer to money as paper with pictures on it. Okay? Which is what it is. Our science tells us that there are 100 billion galaxies. They are only looking at one dimension. According to the Andromedans, there are at least 100 trillion galaxies. And every galaxy has a physicality, and it has life in it. So we are so far not alone. It's just amazing, you know. And even NASA in the United States mathematically calculated that it would be impossible for us to be alone. Okay? So the universe is vast, or the galaxies and the universes are vast.
It would create a feeling that is extremely uncomfortable called cognitive dissonance. And because it is so important to protect the core belief, they will rationalize, ignore, and even deny anything that doesn't fit in with the core belief. And that's why people that stand out and say things that are different to the norm invariably get attacked, ridiculed, condemned, and all the rest of it, because you're challenging so many. Oh my God, how many core beliefs are going to be challenged today? My goodness me. Getting the Guinness Book of Records for the days out. Mark Twain, it's easier to fool people than to convince them they have been fooled. Why? Because they don't, understandably, want to realize they've been fooled. But it's a wonderful thing to realize you've been fooled. It's a great gift, because from that point you will not be fooled any longer. It's a wonderful gift. People are embarrassed by it. This is another fundamental aspect of the bamboozle. It's called Stockholm Syndrome, a psychological phenomenon in which hostages express empathy and have positive feelings towards their captors, sometimes to the point of defending them. And this scene from the first Matrix movie captured the Stockholm Syndrome so perfectly. You have to understand, most of these people are not ready to be unplugged, and many of them are so inert, so hopelessly dependent on the system, that they will fight to protect it. And so you have people in uniform who are part of what people term the 99%, actually probably 99.9 if you really get to it, and yet they're defending the 1% or the 0.1% from the rest. As Plato said, the ancient Greek philosopher, those who are able to see beyond the shadows and lies of their culture will never be understood, let alone believed by the masses, because the program is so strong. But we are starting to break it up. We live in a freaking lunatic asylum. All right? Now imagine that you are born into a madhouse, you grow up in the madhouse, your parents are from the madhouse, your teachers are from the madhouse, your scientists and your academics are from the madhouse, your doctors are from the madhouse, all of them, the journalists are from the madhouse. Doesn't necessarily need to scan very, very far for that, does it? But what then happens is someone who's not grown up in that situation comes along and says, this is a freaking madhouse. But to you, the madhouse is normal, because it's all you've ever known. And thus, to you, someone saying the madhouse is mad is themselves mad. It's one of the great examples of human inversion, this inverted society. And as this man said, brilliant, birds born in a cage think flying is an illness. What you've been brought up with is your normal, however bloody mad it may be. It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. And that sums up the madhouse. That sums up the madhouse. People who have become well adjusted to a profoundly sick society to the point where they think it's normal. And who runs the institutions of this world? People like that, because of the system that puts them there. It's great. An idiot is a genius to another idiot, because that's their perception of what a genius is. So, let's look at this madhouse. And what is considered normal? We kill people who kill people because killing people is wrong. I mean, I was that high, and I was saying to me, Dad, we're still hanging people in Britain then. What are they hanging them for? They say killing's wrong. What are they doing? Couldn't work it out. It's madness. Oh no, an eye for an eye. Yeah, it makes the whole world blind. Yeah, gotcha. Here you go. I heard you throw bombs on people who throw bombs at you because you are throwing bombs at them, so they will stop throwing bombs at you. Just wanted to ask how it was working so far. Wow. Jeez.
And I've been threatened by federal government. So I know what they can do, and I respect them because they will kill you. In this country, you can be killed. If you know something you're not supposed to know, or if you're talking about subjects you're not supposed to talk about, they will kill you. Now, first of all, they would prefer just putting you in jail, finding some misplaced comma on your income tax and send you away for 30 years. But if that's not going to work, then they'll just kill you. So I'm saying that America is in very serious trouble because the people have not been told what's going on. They haven't been told how this world works. The world, I'll give you some freebies. It took me 48 years to learn this. Well, let me tell you some of the secrets that I've learned. One is that nothing in this world works the way you think it does. Nothing. Nothing that you understand about this world works the way you think it does. It doesn't. Banks don't loan money. There are laws, federal laws, on the books today that say, very specifically, banks cannot loan money ever. That's the law. So what are you going to the bank to get a loan for when banks can't loan money? Logic alone would explain it to you. I'm not going to put $100,000 into a bank so that you can come in and borrow $100,000 for a new car on my money. No, thank you. You're not going to take my money to buy your car, and if you don't pay for it, I just lost $100,000. That's not the way it works. No, banks cannot loan money. So what happens is if you buy a new car, and say it's a $40,000 car, every automobile or anything, house, motorcycle, doesn't matter what it is, must have an appraiser appraise that property or appraise that car. And so whatever that car is worth, say that car is worth $40,000, the appraiser said. So when you take that, so that paperwork is called commercial paper, and that commercial paper represents $40,000 of a business. You take that commercial paper, and when you say you want to buy this car, the car agency will take that paper and give it to the bank. The bank then takes that commercial paper, which represents $40,000, and opens up a bank account in your name. And it will forge your name. It will forge your signature, because you can't open a bank account unless the person opening it signs it. So they will forge your name on a bank account, but they don't tell you that. Then they take the $40,000 commercial paper and deposit it in the account, the new account that they just opened for you. Because if you have a ring worth $40,000 and you get it appraised for $40,000, you can walk into the bank and tell the bank president, I want to deposit this ring, and here's the paperwork on it. It's worth $40,000. I want to deposit that in my account. And they will take the ring, and they will then put $40,000 in your account. Now you've got 40 grand in your account to do it, but they got your ring, and they know it's worth $40,000, so they're not worried. They just give you credit. Yeah, and so therefore, the bank never loaned you anything. They just took the commercial paper, put it into a bank account, and then they wrote a check on it, because after all, now you got $40,000 at the bank, so now they write a check on it and give it to you, and you give it to the car agency. So you've paid them. No, you didn't pay them anything. Nobody paid anybody anything. Let me explain something to you. Suppose you are a painter, and I hire you to paint my office, and you say that it will be $100, and I agree to that. After the job is over, as a contractor, the way commerce is operating, in commerce, you come to me and you give me a bill for $100. I look at it, I agree to this bill, so I owe you $100. So what you're doing is you're giving me $100, you're giving me a bill for $100. I reach in my pocket and I pull out a $100 bill, and I give you a $100 bill. So now I paid you. No, I gave you a bill for $100. It's called a $100 bill. And if the charge was $20, then you give me a bill for $20, I'll give you a $20 bill. So now you owe me $20. You owe me $100. Yeah, I didn't pay you nothing. I discharged the debt because I discharged it. I cut off the charge because now you owe me $100. I just gave you a bill for $100. It's called a $100 bill. And you think you got paid. No, it's a bill. You owe me. And since you owe me and I owe you, we're even. So that's why, that's why you don't own anything.
And part of that destiny is being able to manage and control and live with ourselves. We all have a soul, okay? So we are spiritual beings. There is a creator, creatus, okay? What I want to do at this moment is I once asked Phasaeus what was going to become of us. And what was going to happen to our races? Who were we going to become? Because they were giving me this terrible, or not terrible, let me take that back. They were giving me this reflection of who we are. They don't understand how we could be genetic royalty and allow people to starve. They don't understand why we would war with each other and build technology for the sole purpose of destruction, thinking that it was going to keep us safe and from harm. When we don't build anything that we don't use. They don't understand They just don't understand why we don't get it. I guess they feel that we should know better. There was a time, there has been times, where there have been many discussions amongst ET groups about what to do on Earth to help us. There's been discussions regarding intervention around 2012. There have been discussions about intervention previous to 2012 regarding things that most of us don't know anything about in our world. In those conversations, which are very open conversations, there were several groups or civilizations of extraterrestrial groups who didn't want to help Earth and basically said, well, let's just see what they do. Let's not intervene in any way, shape, or form. And here were their reasons, and I think it's important for you to know. The reasons that this group did not want to help or intervene in any way with us is because of three things. They don't respect their home, they don't respect themselves, they don't respect each other. What is their value? Okay, now they weren't talking about just Americans, they weren't talking about Japanese, they weren't talking just about Russians or Chinese, they were talking about all of us and all the decisions that we make every single day as a race, And that one hurt. That one still hurts. And those of us in the United States have been trying to get the word out. We've had a lot of problems trying to get this out. People who are closed-minded, news media that thinks it's ridiculous, religious fanatics who simply will not let go of old dogma that should have been dead 400 years ago. It's a real challenge. It's a real challenge. And the bottom line is you can't make anybody do anything because we all have free will.
Scientists talk about a phenomenon known as the GZK cutoff, which is an apparent boundary for cosmic ray particles caused by the interaction with cosmic background radiation. The University of Bonn paper says that this pattern of constraint mirrors what you would find with a computer simulation. They say that like a prisoner in a pitch black cell, we would not be able to see the walls of our prison. And this is right on the other side of the world. James Gates, an American theological physicist, professor of physics at the University of Maryland and director of the Center of String and Particle Theory. This was reported in Physics World. There may be evidence to show that our reality is a simulation akin to the movie The Matrix. Yes! Gates and his team of researchers discovered equations in the fabric of the universe that contain embedded computer codes of digital data. They take the form of 1 and 0 and 0, the binary system of on-off electrical charges used by computers, and he says we have no idea what they are doing there. I think I can help him. Computers and other electrical technology are embedded with mathematical sequences known as error-correcting codes or block codes, which return data to its original state if something changes or interferes with it during transmission. Gates and his team have found these sequences within the fabric of our reality, but they don't know what they are doing there. They're holding the reality in place for reasons I'll explain in part 2. And what I would say, the biggest blocking code of this reality, this fake reality, as I'll explain after lunch, it is the walls of the reality, the fake reality that we've been manipulated to decode, believing it to be real. And they've been talking for centuries and centuries about the fact that this is some kind of enclosed world. And it is. And like a prisoner in a pitch black cell, we may never be able to see the walls of our prison until we wake up. So, put this all together, and we're living a fake identity. We think we're our name, our race, our job, our income bracket, our religion, and our life story. I am whatever the system tells me I am. And so we need to stop living the lie and start living the truth of who we really are. We are infinite awareness. We are not humans, that is our experience. We are infinite awareness having that experience. Infinite possibility. And this is a wonderful quote I've used a few times, but it's so brilliant from a near-death experiencer. What they experience outside of the body. Everything from the beginning, from my birth, my ancestors, my children, my wife, everything comes together simultaneously. I saw everything about me and about everyone who was around me. I saw everything they were thinking now, what they thought then, what was happening before, what was happening now. There is no time, there is no sequence of events, no such thing as limitation of distance, of period, of place. I could be anywhere I wanted to be simultaneously. That's who we are, and that's what the system is seeking to keep from us, to hold us in this one narrow band of point of attention. And bollocks begets bollocks. That's why the whole of our society is flawed and distorted and inverted, because it's coming from a totally fake position of the reality that we are. Yippee, we know all about the known. No, you know what you've been told. And if you tell the system back what you've been told, you pass exams and you progress within the system. Congratulations. Wisdom is knowing how little we know. And that doesn't mean you believe everything, of course not, but it means your mind is constantly open to all possibility. We are in an intellect prison. We worship the intellect. This is the isolated intellect without consciousness. Village bloody idiot. That's the intellect. It looks at dots and it focuses on dots, but it can't connect them to see the picture.
Oh yeah, well, your body, your very body is a security on the New York Stock Exchange. Did you know that? Each one of you is worth over $6.5 million on the New York Stock Exchange right now. Let me show you something. You got a $1 bill? Give me a $1 bill. I want to show you something. Thank you. On the Social Security card, back in 1868, after the Civil War, a group of men got together and formed a corporation. Well, anybody can form a corporation. Anybody. So this group of guys got together, and they formed a corporation in Delaware. It's a Delaware corporation. And they called the corporation the United States Corporation. And it was stipulated that anybody who would work for that corporation would be referred to as a citizen. So it's a United States corporation. And if you work for that corporation, you're a citizen. And so there today, when you walk in a bank or anywhere and they ask you, are you a U.S. citizen? You say yes. What you think they're asking you, are you lawfully in America to do business? They didn't ask you if you were lawfully in America. Like an attorney, listen to what they ask you. Because you're in court, be careful what you say before the judge when he says, are you a U.S. citizen? Because if you say yes, what you have said is that, yes, I am voluntarily, of my own volition, admitting that I am an employee of a foreign corporation called United States, which was incorporated as a Roman trust back in 1868, so that the United States is a privately owned company, like Ford Motor Company, General Motors. They're huge, they're big. Well, so is the U.S. government, but it's a privately owned corporation. And therefore, all corporations have to have a president. So we got a president. And corporate law says you have to have a vice president. So they got a vice president. And you also have to have a secretary-treasurer. That's corporate law. So they got a secretary-treasurer. It's a privately owned company, for God's sakes. It's like General Motors, Ford Motor Company, Sears, and the U.S. government. It's all corporate. It's a business. And consequently, your body is a security on the New York Stock Exchange because you're the security for what is referred to as the body social. That's why when you retire, you get Social Security, because you are the security for the corporation. As long as you're doing your job and making money and paying them every year, you're good security. You know, you got money coming in. And so that's why you have to have a seat belt and the car, and you have to have insurance and a seat belt. Why? Because they love you and want to protect you? No, no, no. They own you. They own your body on the security on the New York Stock Exchange. So then, and so if you get in a wreck, now they got to pay you, for God's sakes. Now they got to take care of you. No, no, they want you to pay them, airhead, not them pay you. So they want you to protect yourself, and if you're going to be stupid and get in an accident, have insurance so the federal government will be paid for your stupidity of getting yourself in a wreck. So they get the insurance. So that's why you have to take care of yourself. I mean, once you understand how this works, well, anyway, this is a corporation. It's called United States Corporation. It's privately owned. So if you think for 1 minute, I'm going to go to Vietnam and fight for Ford Motor Company, you got another thing coming. No. For my country is a republic. Now that's different. But there's a world of difference between United States of America and United States. United States is a privately owned company. It's a corporation. The republic is different. It's a whole different world. So you need to understand how those different words are used. There's a world of difference between a trial by jury and a jury trial. Doesn't mean the same thing. There's a world of difference between California State and the state of California. Doesn't mean the same thing at all. So there's a world of difference between a lawyer and an attorney. Doesn't mean the same thing at all. You need to understand words. Study the world of occult terms and knowledge that attorneys and lawyers know that you don't know. Again, this is a corporation. It was founded in 1868 called the United States Corporation, privately owned. And if you're a member of that corporation, like any corporation, you're naturally going to have an ID card. So if you're walking around the plant, they will be able to tell you to actually work for Ford, and here's your code numbers. And so this is your certificate number in the corporation. But on the back, you will see a set of numbers on the back. On mine, it's red. And normally, they're in red. Sometimes they're in black. Normally, the numbers on the back are in red. Why? It doesn't matter what color it is, it's what it represents. It's in red because it represents your blood. These numbers are your body on the New York Stock Exchange. So when you have a dollar bill, an American money, you will see there's a code numbers on the bill. See the code numbers on the bill? When you put your numbers on the back of your Social Security card with the numbers on the bill, they're identical. So that your body is worth $6.5 million on the stock exchange, and it is the security for America's money. Your body is a security for the body social. That's why when you retire, you get Social Security. No, you are the security for the body of the corporation. And they're using your body on the New York Stock Exchange, and that's why this government has never cared about all the illegals coming in from Mexico, and they don't care about that at all. Why? Because the more the merrier. The more people that they get Social Security numbers on, that's $6.5 million more they just got. And so if they get 150,000 a day times 6.5 million every day, the government's making money off of people coming in. They couldn't care less where you come in. They want documented workers so they can document you to get the credit through the international banking cartels out of London to pay them for you, because your body is a security on the New York Stock Exchange. So that's why there will never be any stopping of the illegal, because look at, if the corporation called United States is a company, it's a corporation, and if you are doing something and making money, and you are not paying them, they can put a lien on you. It's called a mechanic's lien. You know, if you have a painter and he paints your house and you don't pay him, you can put a mechanic's lien, meaning he goes to the bank and says, I'm putting a lien on this house because they owe me $6,000 and they won't pay me, which means you cannot do anything with that property until you pay him first. So if you want to sell the property first, but the first $6,000 goes to this man because he has a lien on you, because he did something for you and you didn't pay him. So therefore, if you are working in California, but you're not a U.S. citizen, you're not in the corporation, you become known as an alien, because they have now put a lien on you. You are now an alien. No, you're not an alien. They have put a lien on you. Words. It's magical, the way words are used. You go to court. Why do you go to court? You play tennis on a court. You play basketball on the court. How do you play tennis on a court? You play with a racket. Come on. No, serious. You think that these lawyers dream up this stuff by chance? No. These guys are smart. They're playing a game, and you just don't know the game they're playing. So you go into a court. The whole idea of a court is like I said, basketball court is a game. This team stands up and throws the ball back in the other guy's court. And that team of lawyers throws the ball back in this guy's court. And the judges comes out, he's a referee because he's wearing a black robe. Black robes represent the planet Saturn, the lord of money and banking and law. Saturn was the god of banking and law. And his priest of Saturn always wore black robes. That's why the Catholic Church wears a black robe. That's why the rabbis wear black robes. When you graduate from high school, you wear a black robe. The whole idea of the Saturnian is called Saturn. The god Saturn was Lord of the Rings. So women were told to listen to their god, so they would wear an earring, because Saturn is the Lord of the ring. And men were to get married before their god, so they wear a wedding ring. You need to understand there is a world of occultism, manipulation, exploitation of the human race with words and terms and symbols that you don't even know is happening right in front of you.
Some of the things that they've talked about. Now, there's a lot of talk about a shifting of dimensions, changing of frequencies. Yes, this is in fact happening. Okay, it isn't just about consciousness. Although actually it is about consciousness, because when consciousness shifts, physicality responds and changes. So it starts inside of us, okay? Now, according to the Andromedans, on March 23rd of 1993, a color sound frequency started emanating from all the black holes in our known galaxies or universe. It's the first time it's ever happened, and they just simply didn't know what it was about. What they have learned since then is that this frequency, which involves color, light, and sound, is so high that it is literally changing the dimensions all the way up to what they say we have 11 dimensions in our known holograph, which we call a universe. Okay, it's a holograph. It's a self-contained picture of all the dimensions. That this frequency is literally changing the entire holograph, dimensional holograph of our universe. Not only are we going through changes, but so are the Andromedans and all the other races that are involved. Okay? They have heard, and again, this is third, maybe fourth-hand information, they have heard that those on 11th density that have shared their experience with what is happening to lower densities, and then the communication is working its way down, is that this new 12th density has colors that have never been seen before, harmonics that have never been seen before, and also conscious beings that no one has ever seen before. And that these conscious beings have the ability to look straight down through all the dimensions. So, change is happening. Okay? So I told you that so I could set this up. This is from Mornay. All of us, regardless of our form and dimensional growth, live in boundless consciousness. It does appear that all things revolve and evolve in cycles. Now, after the blindness of 5,725 years, you on your Terra, Earth, are about to regain yourselves. It will be such an unprecedented change that it will be difficult for many to grasp your own potential. It is a turning point on your world which none of your planet's forefathers were privileged to experience. Okay, so we're the first. We're the first. I know that there's a lot of books. I know that there's a lot of channels. I know that there will probably be many contactees who share their knowledge.
In discussing the large-scale structure of the cosmos, astronomers sometimes say that space is curved, or that the universe is finite but unbounded. Whatever are they talking about? Let's imagine that we are perfectly flat. I mean absolutely flat. And that we live, appropriately enough, in a flatland. A land designed and named by Edwin Abbott, a Shakespearean scholar who lived in Victorian England. Everybody in flatland is, of course, exceptionally flat. We have squares, circles, triangles, and they all scurry about. We can go into our houses and do our flat business. Now, we have width and length, but no height at all. Now, these little cutouts have some little height, but let's ignore that. Let's imagine that these are absolutely flat. That being the case, we know, us flatlanders, about left-right, and we know about forward-back, but we have never heard of up-down. Let us imagine that into flatland, hovering above it, comes a strange three-dimensional creature which, oddly enough, looks like an apple. And the three-dimensional creature sees an attractive, congenial-looking square, watches it enter its house, and decides in a gesture of interdimensional amity to say hello. "Hello," says the three-dimensional creature. "How are you? I am a visitor from the third dimension." Well, the poor square looks around his closed house, sees no one there, and what's more, has witnessed a greeting coming from his insides, a voice from within. He surely is getting a little worried about his sanity. The three-dimensional creature is unhappy about being considered a psychological aberration, and so he descends to actually enter Flatland. Now, a three-dimensional creature exists in Flatland only partially. Only a plane, a cross-section through him can be seen. So, when the three-dimensional creature first reaches Flatland, it's only the points of contact which can be seen, and we'll represent that by stamping the apple in this ink pad and placing that image in Flatland. And as the apple were to descend through, slither by Flatland, we would progressively see higher and higher slices, which we can represent by the apple. So the square, as time goes on, sees a set of objects mysteriously appear from nowhere and inside a closed room and change their shape dramatically. His only conclusion could be that he's gone bonkers. Well, the apple might be a little annoyed at this conclusion, and so, not such a friendly gesture from dimension to dimension, makes a contact with the square from below and sends our flat creature fluttering and spinning above Flatland. At first, the square has no idea what's happening. He's terribly confused. This is utterly outside his experience. But after a while, he comes to realize that he is seeing inside closed rooms in Flatland. He is looking inside his fellow flat creatures. He is seeing Flatland from a perspective no one has ever seen it before to his knowledge. Getting into another dimension provides as an incidental benefit a kind of X-ray vision. Now our flat creature slowly descends to the surface, and his friends rush up to see him. From their point of view, he has mysteriously appeared from nowhere. He hasn't walked from somewhere else. He's come from some other place. They say, "For heaven's sake, what's happened to you?" And the poor square has to say, "Well, I was in some other mystic dimension called up." And they will pat him on his side and comfort him, or else they'll ask, "Well, show us, where is that third dimension? Point to it." And the poor square will be unable to comply. But maybe more interesting is the other direction in dimensionality. What about the fourth dimension? Now, to approach that, let's consider a cube. We can imagine a cube in the following way. You take a line segment and move it at right angles to itself in equal length. That makes a square. Move that square in equal length at right angles to itself, and you have a cube. Now, this cube, we understand, casts a shadow. And that shadow we recognize. It's, ordinarily drawn in third grade classrooms as two squares with their vertices connected. Now, if we look at the shadow of a three-dimensional object in two dimensions, we see that, in this case, not all the lines appear equal. Not all the angles are right angles. The three-dimensional object has not been perfectly represented in its projection in two dimensions, but that's part of the cost of losing a dimension in the projection. Now, let's take this three-dimensional cube and project it, carry it through a fourth physical dimension. Not that way, not that way, not that way, but at right angles to those three directions. I can't show you what direction that is, but imagine that there is a fourth physical dimension. In that case, we would generate a four-dimensional hypercube, which is also called a tesseract. I cannot show you a tesseract because I and you are trapped in three dimensions. But what I can show you is the shadow in 3 dimensions of a 4-dimensional hypercube or tesseract. This is it. And you can see it's 2 nested cubes, all the vertices connected by lines. And now the real tesseract in 4 dimensions would have all the lines of equal length and all the angles right angles. That's not what we see here, but that's the penalty of projection. So, you see, while we cannot imagine the world of 4 dimensions, we can certainly think about it perfectly well.